The country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
Can I finish, Simone? Will you just shut up for a minute and let me finish?
Pardon me, sir. You don't get to tell me to shut up on national television.
We don't tell people to shut up on this show.
We're about to jump in here and take a look at some of these comments that Kamala Harris had to say yesterday. And boy, are they bad and embarrassing. She did not do a very good job. Although we're seeing a lot of people try to make the argument that she did a fantastic job. She did not. I just have to tell people, she did not do a good job, okay? This started off poorly with immigration, and then they went into an entire conversation about how absolutely horrible the direction of the country is going and how people view it that way. And she tried her best. She did. To try to make it as if it's not her problem, it's someone else's problem, like, I don't know, Donald Trump, since it was all about Donald Trump. But just listen to this. This was one of my favorite interactions from last night. This is one of them. Here we go.
Frankly, exhausted of Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
Okay, it's great. Actually, I don't know what you're talking about. No one knows what you're talking about. This is what happens when you're used to a friendly interview. You know, on my talk radio show, obviously, I usually take rather contentious callers that I disagree with, and therefore, I think I'm pretty good at fighting with them. Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm good at fighting in my personal life because of that as well. Kamala Harris is not good at this because Kamala Harris is constantly running into people that say, oh, I know exactly what you're saying. The people think the direction of the country is going in the wrong direction because Donald Trump's been running for office for 8 years. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. But there she is. And then she has the nerve to say, oh, you know what I'm saying. Like Brett Baer is supposed to go, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. He says, I don't have a clue what you're saying. Just an absolute embarrassment for her. Let's wrap that up.
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, frankly, exhausted of Brett.
They're all tired of her, especially those Republicans that Donald Trump destroyed. Yes, we got that. They do not like him. That is absolutely very true. On the issue of immigration, he destroyed her. I mean, look, anyone that thinks this was a good idea for Kamala Harris to do this should be fired. As I mentioned in the 7 things, they should be testing their food because it's not going to look good. Let's talk about immigration. And it's important to do that.
Original premise. Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have.
You know that thing on the internet when like your computer's thinking and it does the little circle and it starts turning? That's Kamala Harris as she's putting together these term papers. She's trying to, she knows where she wants to go, I think, but she doesn't know how to get there. So she just spins and spins and spins and spins while she tries to get there. Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's the worst. And let me tell you, it's so bad. It's so bad. And nothing could be worse. It's bad. It's really bad.
Have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Brutal.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely.
I mean it.
But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions.
Okay, so he already blew up this argument she's trying to make here. And that argument is that Donald Trump didn't want to have any border security. So we need someone in office who's willing to take care of it, who doesn't look at politics first. But why is Kamala Harris now concerned about border security when they haven't been for 3 years? She's telling on herself. That's what's actually happening here. She's telling on herself. She didn't care until now. She didn't care until she was running for office. If she cared, she'd have done something about it. We're pretending she's not the borders are, right? We're pretending all these things don't matter. And Kamala Harris is here trying to say, well, he only cared about politics. It's the only reason you're even suggesting and pretending, by the way, that you care about the border, because we know they don't care about the border or they would have done something about it. The only reason they're saying they care about the border, the only reason, is so they can say, well, if I am elected, I'll do something about it. Do something now. You have the executive authority. Convince the president to do so. Instead of distancing yourself from him, put some pressure on him to actually act. Say, President Biden, shut down the border. It's what I'm going to do if I'm president. We should do it right now. Do that. I'd be impressed by that. It's all politics, but at least I'd be impressed by it. Continuing on, economic policy. Let's talk about that for a second with Kamala Harris and Brett Baier. I mean, he killed her. I mean, I'm sorry. This was a beatdown. This is what I think Alabama is going to do to Tennessee this weekend. This is how bad it is.
My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
Why does nobody believe you? Why does nobody trust you? Oh, these people who said that inflation was transitory and that the Inflation Reduction Act, all of these people said that none of this would happen, but now it's happened. But now they're saying that my plan's better and his is bad. So we're supposed to listen to them. Donald Trump actually made a great point the other day when he was talking to the Bloomberg guy and said, you guys are wrong about everything. It's not that they're wrong about everything. They're liars. That's the real problem. They're lying about what they're saying. That's the real issue. They don't really necessarily believe what they're saying in those situations. They're BSing. I mean, that's the truth. I want to get one more clip in here, and then we'll maybe get to some phone calls here. 205-545-9950 if you would like to jump in. One more quick clip here. This is where she got mad at the end. I thought this was great. I really love this. He made her so mad.
Question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that.
So she wants him to play the clip she wants to respond to, not respond to the clip he played. She wants to respond to the clip where Trump is talking about the enemy within, guys like Adam Schiff, guys who have targeted him from the very beginning, where he's right. And she wants to respond to that and say, you can't say the American people are the enemy within. You can't say there are people from the American. Well, you can say that. And then they asked Donald Trump, what do you mean about that? And he says, they're pretending I'm talking about the normal human beings. I'm not. I'm talking about the DOJ. I'm talking about the deep state. I'm talking about Adam Schiff. And she pretends, no, he cannot respond to that. I'm only going to respond to the original comment and none of the explanation. This from a human being. This from a human being who is out there trying to make the argument that all of her past positions and statements don't matter. All of her former positions and statements don't matter. And it should be taken only on what she's saying today, right now. That's what she's arguing. And she doesn't want to hear any explanation where Donald Trump says, but that's not what I'm saying. That's not my point. That's not my argument. And she can't even begin to respond to it, so she just attacks him for saying it.
And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America.
I never noticed this until right now, but Brett Baer in this clip is smirking. He's got that cartoon smile where it's like diagonal, where it's not like an actual smile or a straight face. He's doing that whole like smirk face, which is great. Let's get back into that.
Should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
I want to make sure I understand this. This is an insane woman who doesn't know what she's saying before she says it. Just keep that in mind. She's now saying that he's a threat. So Donald Trump saying people are a threat, unacceptable, bad, terrible, awful. It makes her so angry. I'm making a mean face. And people are saying, what a great moment for Kamala Harris. And then she, because she doesn't know what she's saying, a minute later, she's calling him a threat to America. Like, just think about it. Think about this for a second. And they think this is a moment that makes her look good. You feel for Kamala Harris for two reasons. One, the head of Hamas might be dead, and I know that's got to hurt her. And two, she embarrassed herself last night. She ain't going on Joe Rogan. We'll wrap this up real quick. Hold on.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump. You call Donald Trump.
They're going to get into the whole, like, you called him a threat and all this other stuff, which she absolutely did. And by the way, the Bob Woodward book, Maggie Haberman, no friend to Trump, has called a lot of questions into some of the stuff in the book, saying that she can't clarify any of those things that have been said. So there is that part of this as well. So a lot needs to be said about that. But we'll have to get into all of that later. because here we are. We're done with this particular segment.